This is the High Desert Luthiery podcast.
I'm Perry with Unga Guitars, and I'm here with Ricardo, the founder of Roma Devices. Can you tell us how you came up on Roma Devices as your name?
Sure. Yes, of course. So this is going to be very, I guess, interesting to you. So after my stint in undergrad in Puerto Rico, I went to Massachusetts. And over there, I went to law school. And I got through that whole process of technique way of talking and skillful way of presenting arguments and stuff like that. One of the things that really stuck with me was the way that we set rules in this nation, in the United States. And one of the ways that got to the point that it is today is because of Roman law and the way that it is written and the way that it's organized. So I wanted to create a space that I could have branding and a theme that was rich in history and in symbolism. So Roma Devices brand just came in as a way of me expressing different symbolic interactions that I've had through my life through the creation of a material object. So I was able to just say, okay, so I want to create an object that, like you said earlier, it means what it is. So you play with conviction, right? You play with conviction, but you also talk with conviction, right? So for a lot of musicians, their way of speaking and communicating is through their instrument. And, when you go to court and you have someone that's advocating from you in court and they need to speak to the judge, especially in the old courts of the beginnings of time, they needed to speak with conviction in order for words to reverberate in the courtroom. Right? So you needed to be able to speak your truth in a way that everybody could listen to it. Right? So for me, all of this connected, and Roma was a way for me to tie all of this together into a theme that I could integrate not only the pedal name, but also the ways that other pedals are going to be made and the lineups and the way that we're going to present that symbolism. And we also had to select Roma Devices because of its meaning of quality. We usually think about, let's say, the Roman system for water or sewage or the streets or the buildings that are, some of them are still standing today. You say, oh, so, those people built with quality in order to stand the test of time. So one of the things that we wanted to show is that our products, even though in the future we're going to have different types of lineups working towards different types of groups, we want to keep quality consistency through our products that shows and that is part of the meaning of the brand as well. So for me, Roma just tied everything together and was a way of also bringing something to the music industry that for me wasn't there, which was that type of construction and affordability and business sense. Roma just ties everything together. And yeah, it's just our way of trying to present ourselves to the public in a sophisticated way. And I think people have taken it well.
Hi, I'm Perry from Unga Guitars, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the High Desert Luthiery podcast. If you're unaware of the High Desert Luthiery Invitational, or HDLI for short, that's our show that we have twice a year here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We do one show in the summer and one show in the winter. The HDLI is a small trade show dedicated to stringed instrument makers and also luthier adjacent makers such as amplifier, effects pedal, pickup, pick makers, all sorts of makers. We have strap makers. Gosh, I'm probably leaving somebody out. But it's turned into this really cool event where, essentially everything guitar and hopefully other stringed instrument makers. We have such a wide world of luthiers out here in New Mexico. We try and represent as many of them that we can, especially if they're willing to take a chance and participate in a show. You can find out more about us at our website, highdesertluthery.com. You can visit our Instagram page, High Desert Luthery. You can also catch some older episodes here on the YouTube channel. And if you're enjoying the content, please do like the episodes you listen to and also follow us. And do comment too if you enjoy something. And you can also reach out and ask questions. I love fielding that sort of stuff. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of the High Desert Luthiery Podcast. I'm Perry with Unga Guitars, and I'm here with Ricardo, the founder of Roma Devices. Thank you for joining me today. We were working through a little recording hiccup. So we'd been chatting for a while, and I was expressing to Ricardo how excited I was to play his Conviction pedal. It's an overdrive that solved a need of mine at a perfect time. I'd been challenging myself with some of Mark Knopfler's work, some of his solo work, as well as his work with Dire Straits. And one of the songs I've been kind of really leaning into is Sultans of Swing. And he's got a certain sound. Everybody knows he's got a certain sound. You hear it, you recognize it. We have these sort of tonal imprints that we chase, like Stevie Ray for some people, Carlos Santana for others. And I guess as a player, I was always looking to sound big. And I realized through experience in trying gear and making gear to solve my needs, a fuzz pedal is what worked for me rather than like a tube screamer or something. It just kind of gave me this big sound in conjunction with the power booster. And it gave me a sound that I made work for my situations as a cover band guitar player. Over the years, I kind of collected different stuff, made different things to get different sounds. So Allison and I are always looking for new people to reach out to. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We'll reach out to you, say, hey, we love what you're doing. Can you tell us more? We run the High Desert Luthiery Invitational. We do 2 shows a year, summer and winter. And we are always looking for people to participate. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We want to let you know that we want you to be a part of our show. We're here to support you. We don't charge anybody. The show's free to all the participants and the public. So you're in New Jersey, and I just learned a while ago, confirmed that you will be joining us for the next summer show in 2026, and I'm super stoked. Then the Conviction pedal showed up in the mail. If you follow me on Instagram on the HDLI or Unga Guitars, I posted a picture of that. I'm going to be doing some sound samples pretty soon. Right now, I lent that pedal out to a gigging musician here in town, a friend of mine, and he's going to be giving me some reviews to shoot your way. When I do a little demo, we'll post all of this stuff. We'll send you all the videos, and we do our best to support everyone who is in our show. I was just so excited about this pedal. So all the knobs were off. I hit the volume first. Nothing's labeled. And so I hit the volume first just by chance, and it turns on, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. And it's like got this really nice compression for an overdrive pedal. It was transparent. And I was like, oh my God, it squeezed the sound perfect. Oftentimes with the compressor, it's got too many buttons or it doesn't have enough buttons, right? Knobs, whatever you want to call them. And I don't know what to do with it. I fuss with it. And then, the ADD in me just goes, all right, we'll just leave it home, figure it out later. And this was perfect. And I thought I was getting a really close Sultans of Swing sound. I have a guitar that I play that I kind of made for this situation. And I was thinking, yeah, you know what? This is pretty close. And I plugged in that pedal and it was like, oh, there's the squeeze. I was missing that. And I fussed with this for 20, 30 minutes. And I realized I haven't even touched the other 2 knobs, and I had goosebumps and I was like, oh my God, what else is in here? And, just starting to open it up, I was just like, wow, okay. And so what I've been telling my friends, like who I'm sharing, hey, next time you're over, I'm going to lend this pedal out to you so you can take it for a ride and let me know how you feel about it. Initial response, it sounds expensive. Like, if you ever go to a boutique shop and, maybe they have a Centaur in there or they have your first version Zen Drive,
Right.
like they sound expensive, and if you get to play like boutique amps or ever get to hear players through Dumbles, they sound expensive. I always called like Carlos Santana's tone an expensive tone or a lawyer tone.
That's right.
I gigged with some Santana tribute band and some other, tribute enthusiasts, and they had rigs. They had the Mesa boogies, they had the Santana guitars, the Reeds, the SEs, and the real ones. And I got to work on all those guitars too. It was pretty fun, but it's a lawyer rig. Right. And it was pretty fun to see that stuff because I love Paul Reed Smith's work, but like I wasn't at the time going to justify doing that. But I was also a luthier, so I wasn't after the guitars. A lot of times I was working on them, setting them up, swapping out electronics, stuff like that. But yeah, I've talked long enough. I'd like to give you the floor now. Tell us about the rest of the Conviction pedal, since I've already spilled the beans on the volume knob. Give us your take, what your goals were, like what led you to this pedal.
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. It's something really cool that you're doing with the events and also the podcast. So very exciting to be here today. So let me give you a little bit of a background. I've been playing guitar for probably over 17 years now. And in that time, I've gone through a lot of gear. That gear acquisition syndrome issue that we all have. Well, it's something that is really real. So I've traded a lot of gear and sold a lot of gear and bought a lot of used gear as well. So I've been looking for certain sounds as well throughout that time. Originally, I'm from Puerto Rico. I moved to the States around 8 years ago to study. And after I graduated, I still was trying to get back into this music industry that I love so much, that I've been going in and out since my early years. And as yourself, I'm also a gigging musician. I haven't been for probably 5 or 6 years now, but I did a lot of gigging when I was in my early teens, and then later in order to make some money and can afford undergrad and stuff like that. So I did work a lot on that industry, and I met a lot of great people. Not only a lot of great people, a lot of talented people that really knows their stuff, and they are very interested about the sound and the quality of tone, which is something that could be very subjective, but you can see in a big crowd who has a really good ear, and they kind of get highlighted through the crowd. So it's something very interesting that I've seen through the years that I've been playing. When I graduated here in the States, I was looking to do something that had to do with music, that would integrate my passion for music and also my passion for electronics. I've been working with electronics for my whole life. My dad taught me when I was very young how to work with electronics, but nothing like pedals. So I started this journey of audio related electronics probably around 2 years ago. And as probably most builders, we start at the beginning. We start with the Maestro fuzz tone, and we start with the tone bender, and we start with the fuzz phase, and we start with all of these great circuits that were basically created in a way that would mimic this distortion sound that everybody was so keen to have in those years. So I started playing around with those circuits. And as you say, some of those circuits clean out when you roll off the volume knob on the guitar. Some of them do not. So you have to get very creative in how you're going to set up that circuit so it works in a way that it's purposeful for the guitarist that's playing. So when they're at the stage, they don't have to run back to the pedal board to hit another pedal because they want less distortion. They can also work with their volume up at any point in the stage. So, I worked through those creations of what we call discrete gain stages. I used NPN transistors that were available to me at the time to create like a cascading gain structure that I would be able to get different tones out of my rig. And that came in at a time that I was also getting very into fuzz. And fuzz is a very interesting monster. You have to be very careful with fuzz because it can get really out of hand, or you can control it and make it very controlled if you are really intentional. But I wanted to have a good greedy overdrive, but in the same pedal also have a gated fuzz tone because I wanted to be able to control that beast in a way. So in the conviction pedal, there is this thing that happens that I personally call the collapse section. It's like the last 20% of the gain knob, which is the red knob in the pedal, which we can talk about why they are not labeled later. Um, but that gain knob, the last 20% enters into more of a fuzz territory. But if you leave it from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock down to zero, it's much of a greedier overdrive situation. And one thing that I wanted to nail in this circuit is that no clarity would stay throughout the range of the knob. So I wanted to have something that would be very responsive to the player's fingers and the player's pick, but also that could, let's say, increase the hair in the tone and the distortion as you play stronger in the string. So it was something that I had to play around with for a little bit. And we basically worked, and when I say we, I have a certain group of really close friends that are musicians that have played with me for probably the last 15 years. And I just send them sound samples of the things that I was creating, trying to bounce off what they heard through their ears, because, it's very subjective. So through a lot of testing and probably 8 to 10 different alpha prototypes that are around in the wild right now, we got into something that we really liked, because we also had to go through this whole thing of component selection and creating a pedal that was also able to be produced in a way that I wouldn't run out of components. So we had to do a component selection that was very high quality, but still available in enough quantity in the market so we can make enough of these pedals for the public. So yeah, that's basically the technical background in Conviction. I would like to say as well, Roma Devices has been, let's say, registered and public for around 2.5 years, but we've been actually selling pedals of what I call the production version, Conviction V2, which is the one that you have, since November. So the actual release and pedal sale situation is very recent. So we've been actually going to the public with the product and sending them to people that want to get connected with the brand and the sound throughout this last couple of months. And I think it's been really encouraging, at least the results that we've had.
I would say so. And, learning that you kind of went public, especially with sales in November, I think that's when we found you. And so, for me, I'm glad you took the ad out on Instagram. Like, I'm glad we were able to find you. So you had a group of musician friends. What kind of music were you guys playing growing up as working musicians?
So over in Puerto Rico, it's much more of the Spanish rock Latino scenario. So we were playing a lot of Enanito Verde and group of musicians that are from the area of Colombia, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Spain. Those kind of popular artists of that area. We were making a lot of covers of those bands. And we also have a couple of original songs as well that we were able to play with certain bands that are not around anymore. But it was a really fun time. I guess in those probably 10 years that you go through that gigging phase, you learn a lot, you train your ear, and you get to know yourself. So you, at a later point, can know what you want with your sound.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I started playing, Kenny Wynn Shepherd was real big. He had just come out. I'm a blues and R&B musician, and so this was like exciting to me. Oh wow, these people are the same age as me. Like this is super cool. We're all teenagers, and we're all trying to do something. And as I've been listening to these guys progress, looking at what are they using, what gear are they using to get these sounds, I've noticed that a lot of guitar players, John Mayer included, they come to this really accentuated mid range.
Mm.
It's wild. It's what made me uncomfortable with Carlos Santana for a really long time. I remember hearing him early on, and the sound was huge. And then it started to get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And like listening to him play recently, it's back to this big sound, but it goes back and forth. And, the amps kind of change out a little bit, from the Mesa Boogies to the Dumbles, but it's a really accentuated mid range. It's a subjective thing, right? But the way I experience guitars, it's all in the mid range. There's not really any treble on an electric guitar, and there's not really any true bass on an electric guitar. We might get into, treble mids and bass mids, but for the
Mhm.
most part, it's all mid range. And our ears love mid range. They love it. So when we start to get into this mid range, our ears go, whoa, what's that? And when you listen to a lot of different players through different genres, the sounds, the tones that we collectively say those are good tones have a really accentuated mid range, softened top end, and real balanced bass response. It doesn't matter how filthy it is, it doesn't matter how clean it is. That is kind of how I've experienced musicians, just people listening say, oh, wow, that's a really nice sound. And I love that about your pedal. It just gets me there. And, for years, I couldn't get that out of my amps. The preamps would take over. I couldn't hear my pickups. I couldn't hear what my guitar was doing. Oh, I got a new speaker. I couldn't hear what that was doing because the preamp would take over.
Mm.
And, so to finally decipher, like, okay, what might work for me out of all the amps I've tried, what might work for me tonally, and then have a friend be able to deliver that for me, and then I can go about making whatever guitar I need to suit my needs. I hear this pedal and I go, oh my God, okay, like this is a really cool thing. And for a player, myself, if I go out and play a gig, I'm a lazy player. I'm like, I've learned to be happy with one sound, and then the challenge is work with this. Know the
Mm.
material, but work with this sound. Oftentimes, I'll limit myself to one position on my guitar so that I don't fuss around with it. And the only thing I'll play with is the volume control. I would be 100% comfortable taking my amp, my guitar, and the Conviction pedal out to a cover band gig. 100%. The way the distortion end comes up, how much you can turn it up. You were talking about how the end of the knob kind of disappears. And we experience that on guitars too. Once we hit the wall with as much gain as it's going to get, right after that, from maybe like, let's say, 6.5 to 10, nothing, right? But once you get to about noon, you've reached the full headroom that amp can do. It's going to break up as much as it can by itself. And then you're done. You might be able to do some preamping after that if you have those features, but you're done. Like that's it. That's all that amp's going to do. And then you look at your boxes, but once you kind of hit that wall, anything you do starts to make things sound smaller.
Mm.
And what I really enjoyed about your pedal is I could set my amp to really clean, and I can go from really clean and I could just reach over and turn the drive up and go almost as dirty as my fuzz box. And I'm still playing the fuzz pedal that I made. I've never reproduced it. I think it's a Ram's Head era Big Muff. I kind of like took it down and took the fuzz out of it, turned it into a power booster. And so they're paired together in the same box. And I usually have them both on the whole time, dimed. And it turns the guitar into a trigger, but it only does one thing. And I just use my volume. I use my dynamics to just tame the beast, right? The coolest part about the Conviction is it's so transparent to me. It is like just using the volume knob, it didn't color my sound too much other than it squeezed it the right amount. It offered this tremendous compression quality to it. When I started turning the drive up, the color it added in drive was like the bee's knees. It's kind of bright. It doesn't get muddy at all, which fuzz pedals do. And everything sticks. Every note you hit sticks. So it's like I'm playing single coils. I'm playing a Strat-ish guitar that I made. And it's dry. This guitar I made to be dry. I didn't want it to ring. I just wanted it to be real dry, kind of like a funk guitar or a jazz guitar. Right, just really dry. And when I turned up the drive on the Conviction, every note that I hit stuck, and it brought out this really cool quality in the mid-range. And I sat with the volume control for about 30 minutes going, oh my goodness. Oh, like if this is all I got out of this, whoo, I am a pig in mud. Turning up the drive, I was just like, oh, wow. And I had it running next to another pedal that I made that's a Zen Drive clone. And they're not the same thing. They're both fun sounds, but they're not the same thing. And that's the thing about what you're doing here. I'm not a big pedal nerd. I know a handful of things. I'm familiar with some things. I don't keep up with gear. So the pedal guys out here are probably going to kill me in the comments, for even bringing it up. But it's like night and day. I'll use a Zen Drive now and then. My relationship to it, I'm not comfortable enough with it to like take it out for a whole gig. But I plugged your box in and I'm going, oh my God, like this thing, it's crisp, it's clear. And then I got into the tone knob. And there's a mod that I do on my guitars that come stock. I mod the tone control. For years, as a guitar maker, I decided that the tone knob was taking away too much of the work I'd done as a luthier on electric guitars. And so I just omitted it. And I noticed, oh, well, by getting that out of the way, my signal's a little stronger. And so I was like, well, I don't want to sacrifice signal strength because I want to hit the amp as hard as possible. When I'm having pickups being made for me by different friends of mine, I want all of that stuff to hit the amp as hard as possible. And so for years, I omitted the tone control, and I still do with certain builds, depending on the player. I started thinking maybe like almost 3 years ago, how can I make this tone control work to where it's not just useless? Like, okay, I could roll off all this top end, but then when I get about halfway through that control throw, like it's kind of useless. So how could I make this work better? And I learned about a mod, the grease bucket mod, and it turns it into a Q control pretty much, where you're accentuating everything around the mid-range, but the mid-range stays. And it sounds like you're opening up and closing the mid-range, almost like a wah pedal. And there's different companies that do this, and I noticed that quality in the tone control on the Conviction. And I went, mind blown. I don't usually sit and play with gear. I make something and it's a tool. And I just sat in the garage And I was just like, oh man, this is great. This is really good. Like I've been trying to put time aside to practice because I've never been good at that. And, work on my attention span and, try and learn songs all the way through rather than just show up and kind of fake it till you make it or wing it. It's like, you know what, let me learn a song all the way through every part of it. And this pedal's made it so fun in its transparency, its tightness, its ability to maintain a tone, right? Especially when I've already put in the work to achieve the sound and pretty much thought I was there. I was satisfied. And I've only talked about clean tones with this, and I've mentioned some dirty tones. I've mentioned I'm an R&B blues guitar player. I moonlight as I'm a Led Zeppelin fan. It's kind of like a recent thing. I've always had a love-hate relationship with Led Zeppelin until I met Allison, and she fixed me. Jimmy Page's tones, like they're gnarly. I was never a fan of the playing growing up, and I've become more of a fan now that I kind of get it a little better. And you could totally get some of those Zeppelin tones out of this. Like I was farting around with Houses of the Holy, and it covers that. I was, messing around to go in a slightly different direction and doing my best Gary Moore impression, which is weak at best. And it got me into that SLO range. The Conviction totally got me there. I was able to comfortably run through some Santana tunes. And that's basically a hook based style of playing. And I was like, wow, all right. Yeah, we're here. And just great blues tones in that, as well as I just fake rock through my best Greg Howe impression of his work with Michael Jackson. And it gets that because it's got that tight mid range and it's crunchy. And Greg Howe has always had this like crunchy quality to him, and his notes really stick. And it's that mid range, that ability to accentuate the mid range. Oh my goodness, I could keep going on this. I'm gonna have to type some of this up for you. Wow, this pedal's great. Is there any hidden feature that I'm missing with the Conviction?
There are hidden features, yeah. So let me talk a little bit about what you just said, which I find very interesting from your perspective as a player to hear you describing the sounds, because part of my intention when creating the circuit was to have a circuit that was old school in the sense that somebody could just have, like you said, the guitar, the pedal directly into the amp and have some fun and have this sense of the pedal is not there, that you can play and just have a time with your guitar and the music that you're playing. When you have gear that resonates with you, you can just play without thinking about the tone knob or thinking about the volume knob, or is it too loud, or the gain I don't like it, or the amp and the speaker don't work. Like you can actually just play and enjoy what you're playing. And I was trying to create something that got people into that space. And the range that it covers is interesting because at first I was trying to get into that realm of overdrive that people could use and stack with different pedals in different genres of music. But, as I got more into the circuit and into the topology of a tone bender or a fuzz face and those type of circuits, it's very clear that Conviction trends back and holds back into that originality of that topology because it really has some gritty and fuzz-like tones after when you turn it up a little bit, and especially when you play with that tone knob. When you play with a tone knob, you can get very different tones. It depends. If you're using single coils or if you're using humbuckers, it'll give you a whole different tonality. And, on that point, it was very important to me that this wasn't a pedal that just worked with humbuckers or a pedal that just worked with single coils. It was important to me that people could just say, oh, what if I use this guitar in this way. Maybe I use P90s and it sounds different and it sounds more classic, or it has a different bass response or mid response, like we were talking about earlier. Just having the ability to give somebody the opportunity to just create music. That's part of the inspiration of the pedal. It was to bring people to just say, oh, you know, I don't have to turn my amp up all the way to get the gritty sound that I really like. I can have a amp at room level or apartment level volume, and I can use this pedal to really open up what I'm missing from that amp that I can't get in those lower volumes. And I can actually track and get different tones that I would usually need to stack with another pedal to get those kinds of tones. So it was about this whole plethora of things that created this pedal. And, you know, I can tell you one thing that, I haven't posted publicly at all. It's called the Conviction pedal because it was really hard for me to actually do it. Like, I had to go through a lot of failings of the circuit. Uh, Parts of it didn't work. It wasn't sounding how I wanted to sound. I was getting reviews from other people that, oh, you need more bass or you need more treble here. You need to deal with these harmonics, and the diodes are not working correctly as they should, and we should enhance different things. So it really got a lot of iterations. And it was that conviction of trying to get to that final sound that get me going through all of the iterations until I got into something that I said, oh, this is actually something I can produce to share with people because it's ready. So, that part of me really is proud that people are able to take the pedal and get the sounds that they want out of the pedal. It's something that it really fills me up. But one thing that's also, I think, key in this conversation is that we were talking at the beginning about the working musician. So it was really important to me that even though this is a boutique pedal and it is higher priced, that people that wanted to get access to this sound and this pedal could get access to it. So you know, throughout time, especially when we did our release, we did a couple things in order to cater to that working musician. And we released specials just for the working musician in order to get that pedal on their hands. So they were able to actually get a pedal that wasn't mass produced, that they didn't go to Guitar Center or Sweetwater or Musician's Friend and just bought a pedal that doesn't have the best quality parts and can break and stuff like that, that they went to a place that they can find something custom that has quality parts and gets the sound that they want. And I want to take a little opportunity to talk about Friends of the Forum, which is a part of my website that we created in order to highlight other builders and creators that are doing excellent work on the bench. And the idea behind that is that it's really hard to market to the public and to actually get your product sold. And I wanted to give people the opportunity that if they got to my website and they saw the Conviction pedal, and for some reason they did not want to buy it and wanted to go elsewhere, that they could actually go to the Friends of the Forum section in my website and see other work from other builders that are doing great work instead of just going and getting a pedal off of Amazon. Because it was really important to me to highlight that we have great people in this industry doing amazing work. And, you know, as a company, Roma is expecting to do different types of releases this year that are going to be more affordable, in the more affordable range to attack a different crowd. And also, we are going to do more in the boutique NOS Mojo side of things to get a step up a notch in the way that we do the component selection, which is going to be really interesting and very cool thing to see in the next probably 4 months. We're going to have something out. So we're going to cater to different parts of the community in different ways. And we're trying to be accessible to people so they can actually get the Roma experience themselves. And they just have to reach out. If they reach out to me, usually by Instagram, we can just talk to see what is happening in every person's specific situation, and we can work something out. I've done custom work for people that are not, let's say, famous mainstream musicians, but they are really good at their craft and they have a lot of work to do throughout the year and they need reliable equipment that actually lasts the time and it's easily repaired, which is also one of the reasons why we use through-hole components in order to make reparations easy and long term, because we want our Conviction pedals to be running for the next 20 or 30 years with no issue. So, yeah, it is a very interesting space and business. We are trying to cater to that mainstream group that wants a different sound, but wants an affordable boutique sound. We want to make sure that people know and musicians know that we have great builders here in the United States that can really get you really quality products on your hands. So that's part of our mission, to just let people know that we have great industry leaders. But
Very
yeah,
well said. I have a list over here of points that I made the other day that I wanted to cover. And I
sure.
noticed this when we talked on the phone initially, that you cover everything very well spoken. And I'm going, oh, check, 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 check. This is great. It makes my job really easy. So, like the name of the pedal, I like how you touched on that. What's in a name, right? We haven't really talked about this. I teach guitar making and I've been training people and teaching for a really long time. And I like my students to begin with the end in mind.
Mm.
It's something I learned from Stephen Covey. And like when you start with a brand name, it doesn't matter if you're just going to make one guitar, right? It doesn't matter, how seriously you want to take this. When you start with the end in mind, you have more conviction as you're working through the project. You have more resilience to get through the tough parts. I can totally relate to that. Even on my own adventures of trying to figure something out. And it's like, this is in my head. I can't call anybody to help get this weird idea out, to visualize it, to draw it, to, show me how to make it, because I can barely find the words to describe it. Right. And so it takes a certain amount of conviction and knowing yourself to be able to push through that. I can totally relate to that. But also, my favorite guitar players, Gary Moore, Prince, Stevie Ray, they played with absolute conviction.
Right.
uh, they come through like a freight train, whether they're playing as soft as possible or as hard as possible. Every note counts. It's like, wow, I can't get enough of this. And so there's so many ways this name can be used. And I love you sharing that story. Can you tell us how you came up on Roma Devices as your name?
Sure. Yes, of course. So this is going to be very, I guess, interesting to you. So after my stint in undergrad in Puerto Rico, I went to Massachusetts. And over there, I went to law school. And I got through that whole process of technique way of talking and skillful way of presenting arguments and stuff like that. One of the things that really stuck with me was the way that we set rules in this nation, in the United States. And one of the ways that that got to the point that it is today is because of Roman law and the way that it is written and the way that it's organized. So I wanted to create a space that I could have branding and a theme that was rich in history and in symbolism. So Roma Devices brand just came in as a way of me expressing different symbolic interactions that I've had through my life through the creation of a material object. So I was able to just say, okay, so I want to create an object that, like you said earlier, it means what it is. So you play with conviction, right? You play with conviction, but you also talk with conviction, right? So for a lot of musicians, their way of speaking and communicating is through their instrument. And, when you go to court and you have someone that's advocating from you in court and they need to speak to the judge, especially in the old courts of the beginnings of time, they needed to speak with conviction in order for words to reverberate in the courtroom, right? So you needed to be able to speak your truth in a way that everybody could listen to it, right? So for me, all of this connected, and Roma was a way for me to tie all of this together into a theme that I could integrate not only the pedal name, but also the ways that other pedals are going to be made and the lineups and the way that we're going to present that symbolism. And we also had to select Roma devices because of its meaning of quality. We usually think about, let's say, the Roman system for water or sewage or the streets or the buildings that are, some of them are still standing today. You say, oh, so, those people built with quality in order to stand the test of time. So one of the things that we wanted to show is that our products, even though in the future we're going to have different types of lineups working towards different types of groups, we want to keep quality consistency through our products that shows and that is part of the meaning of the brand as well. So for me, Roma just tied everything together and was a way of also bringing something to the music industry that for me wasn't there, which was that type of construction and affordability and business sense. Roma just ties everything together. And yeah, it's just our way of trying to present ourselves to the public in a sophisticated way. And I think people have taken it well.
Yeah, definitely. So Unga is my nickname that my brother gave me, my youngest brother, and it was his way of saying guitar when he was a little dude, and it stuck with me. And I started making guitars and working on guitars right when he was born. So, like, for his whole life. Well, how long have you been making guitars? Well, how old is my little brother? And so the name stuck. We were looking for a name and he provided it and it stuck. And as artists, our life is often inspirations, the lives we live, the things that influence us. And I just love it how you bring all of this into what you're doing. I was really excited to hear you talking about this community and supporting one another. That's what the High Desert Luthiery thing is all about. We're here to support one another and support like-minded artists. The music world and any world that you get into, any, craft, anything can get pretty ugly, and there can often be very steep paywalls to get through as well. The NAMM show is one of them. The barrier to entry to get into that, it's quite a bit. And, having experienced it myself, it's not for me, definitely. I used to go with the company that I worked for. So I worked for Santa Cruz Guitar And we'd go every year, and they'd go to both of them, the summer and winter NAMM shows. And it was a steep investment. It was a lot of work. And to be able to go to those shows and experience them, it was tremendous. To do any other shows that I did a lot smaller, as Unga, it was a great experience. But the barrier to entry just keeps going up, keeps going up. The lack of anybody telling you what you need to be doing, it bothers me. So when we put the High Desert Luthiery Invitational together, we really wanted to resolve that. Clean, clear communications, and be as organized as we can, be as supportive as we can. When you go and do the NAMM show, they don't expect you to have your shit together. They don't expect you to be able to talk about your product. They're just taking your money. And they're looking for other ways to take your money while you're there. They don't tell anyone you're going to be there. They're not excited to interview you, and they're not excited about you like I'm excited about you. And I'm not saying we're doing anything better. I'm just pointing out that, none of these shows are the make or break situation. Some people have made a mark for themselves by doing the NAMM show. A lot of labels show up and disappear right afterwards, because of that huge investment and the lack of interest and their inability to have the conviction to push through whatever feelings they have to keep doing what they're doing, And so I see a lot of things happen. I've seen a lot of things happen over the years where builders don't go in with that conviction that we've been talking about, that beginning with the end in mind. And, there's a sense in developing a product. Richard Hoover, the founder of Santa Cruz Guitar, he called it heirloom quality. We're building heirloom quality guitars that were going to be around for generations. And having that in mind, that's a huge step. That's a huge step. It excites me to no end to hear people talking this way. I didn't hear it enough coming up. I'd hear it from Richard, but otherwise you have a lot of people telling you, oh, well, you're doing it wrong, or, or you should do this or that. And it's like, what experience do you have in this world? Do you actually have some support here? Or is this just going to be judgment? It's rampant out there. So for you to be able to push through all that judgment, that is an accomplishment in itself. I'm just one guy. I just do my thing, and I try and be as supportive as I can. I tell my students, every day we try and be our best selves. Every day we have an opportunity to be better at what we're doing, to grow, grow our skills, grow as people. And every day we push for that. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned out of all this. So to hear you talking about what you're doing, I'm just like, wow, this is very impressive. This is cool. I'm very honored to have you part of the HDLI. Very excited to meet you in person at the next show. Before we close out here, is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, we're very excited to be in the show. This is a very cool opportunity to just see everybody there and to meet new faces and to shake some hands. Is something that is going to be very exciting for us. And throughout the next couple of months after May, we're also going to be in different shows throughout the nation. So if you want to keep up with us and where we are, just follow us on Instagram. Same thing everywhere, Roma Devices. And yeah, thank you very much for this. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope we speak again.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricardo. All right. Thank you for joining me for that interview with Ricardo, founder of Roma Devices. It was really great getting to know him. I just get so excited when I get to know people. I'm just meeting for the first time in this interview, and just hearing him talk about his product. To me, he's very well spoken. It's conviction. It really goes a long way. I can only try and be as collected as I can. I get so excited about stuff when I'm talking about it, and trying to listen and track with ADD having its influence on me. And I do my best, and I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. If you'd like to learn more about the High Desert Luthiery Invitational, please visit our website, highdesertluthiery.com. You can also visit our Instagram page, High Desert Luthiery. to learn more about the event, to see what we're up to. We try and keep posting and supporting all the artists that are a part of our community as much as we can. That's all the makers, all the musicians that come and play at the shows. Visit our website. It's big. We've got links to everything, to everyone. Any builders that have been part of our past shows. We have an area for those contributors as well as who's going to be in the next shows. We are working on show flyers for this next coming show, the summer 2026 show. We are also working on booking this event. So if you're listening to this interview and this is your first time hearing about the HDLI and you think you want to participate, reach out. We love it. We appreciate that. Yes, it is called the Invitational, and I do most of the inviting. I am open to people reaching out, wanting to participate. We talked about a paywall earlier. There is no paywall in the HDLI. All you have to do is be able to reach out to me and have a conversation with me. We are looking for like-minded people. What does like-minded people mean? Well, we don't want any mean people involved. We need people that we can trust with our community to represent HDLI as well as they can. Work as professional as possible. Sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. We really want people that understand that when we do this for free, we are doing this to benefit everyone. We're not in this just for ourselves. The HDLI is about community and support. And one of the coolest experiences I had was participants in the show just being willing to drop everything to support the community in need. The HDLI community, thank you for being so strong and sticking with me for the last couple of years. I'm Perry from Unga Guitars. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you in the next one.